back here at Gate City Casino. I feel locked in, really ready for this session, very excited. I just did a little meditation on the left pocket bankroll tracker app. So really cool settings that they have there to kind of get you in the right mind frame for your session. Same story, gonna sit down at the 1-2 table for $300. We have $600 in excess in case we need to reload, or if the 1-3 game is good, I'll jump up and play it. But new strategy today is get good cards and get all the money in. All right, we'll see how that goes. See you guys. We grab some chips from the cashier and make the walk into Dano's poker room. It's slowly becoming one of my favorite rooms to play at. We're in the 1-2 game for $300. And upon arrival, we're greeted by a couple of vlog watchers. So thank you guys for your support. It was nice chatting with you guys. Didn't get to play with either of you, but hopefully we can battle soon. In this first hand, the $5 under the gun straddle is on. The middle position player has limped, as has the low jack, and we peel 5-6 of spades on the button. A very good looking suited connector here. I think this is pretty cuspy, but I decide to raise it up to $20. The blinds are going to get out of the way, and contrary to what they might have initially given off, the middle position player and low jack actually have $20 hands, not just $5 hands. They both put in the call. So we're 3 ways in position to a flop, and it's about the best flop we can ask for with 5-6 of spades. It's Jack 4-3 with the 4 and 3 of spades. We have an open-ended straight flush draw. Regardless of what our opponents have, we're going to have a ton of equity, so I'm decently happy to see the middle position player lead for $25. The low jack gets out of the way, and it's back on us. I think we could raise here because we probably have the nut advantage. I don't think he's going to be limp calling jacks, but he is going to have pocket 4s and pocket 3s at full frequency where we might not. So I was kind of in between in game. I think I probably prefer the aggressive route, but as played, I decided to just stick in the call. The middle position player only started the hand with $200 behind, so I kind of wanted to leave an overbet on the turn to hopefully generate some more fold equity if we miss. And we do miss the turn when it's the 3 of clubs. Our equity drops quite a bit, but our outs should still be clean. And this card reduces a lot of the strongest hands the middle position player could have, like 4-3 or pocket 3s. That doesn't deter him though. He's going to continue betting, this time for $50. It's a small size relative to the pot. I don't think we have enough money behind to call the turn and bluff the river if we miss. I don't think the middle position player can have nutted hands super often. And if he does call, any spade, deuce, or 7 should give us the best hand. And if he does happen to have pocket 4s, well, there's always the deuce of spades on the river. So I decide to put maximum pressure on the middle position player. I shove all in for $175 effective. He doesn't think too long before calling pretty quickly. The river is no help to us, and he turns over Jack 8 offsuit. So a bit of a light call down there. Our read was correct that he wasn't so strong on the turn, but we just couldn't get him to fold. Probably not going to be bluffing this guy moving forward. We get stacked in pretty much our first hand we play at the 1-2 table. Not the ideal start. I would rebuy and play for another 2 hours at the 1-2 table. Not a lot of action until a good friend of mine lets me know that the 1-3 game is quite juicy. There's a lot of action. So I decide to reach into the reserves and add on for $700. We get a seat change to the must-move 1-3 table. It's time to go to war. So we sit down at the 1-3 table, and we're getting involved right away with a 3-bet from the cutoff. We've made it $50 over a low jack open of 15. The button is cold called, and when it's back on the low jack, he's getting a pretty good price. He's going to flick in the 2 green chips as well. It's getting close to the holidays, and I'm hoping Santa's not watching this hand because we've decided to get a little bit naughty with a 3-bet with King 9 suited. Perhaps the button has access to the naughty and nice list and has sniffed it out with his cold call. Either way, we're 3 ways to a flop, which comes out 9-8-7 with 2 spades. So we make top pair, but I'm not in love with it. This is a pretty wet board. A lot of sets are going to be represented, probably more so in the field colors range than in my 3-betting range. So I decide to check, and the button checks it on back. Still 3 ways to the turn, which is the front door flush completing deuce of spades. Pretty much the same story as the flop. Even though the nuts have changed, I think my opponents are also going to have more flushes represented than I will, even though I will 3-bet a fair bit of suited broadways. So I decide to check, and the button checks back once more. So we're seeing a free river, which is the 8 of hearts. Reduces the likelihood that our opponents flopped a set or 2 pair. And when the low jack checks it for a 3rd time, I don't think the button would have checked back a strong hand twice. And I think the low jack is leading his strong hands on this river as well. So I feel fairly comfortable to go for some thin value. I do want to make sure I pick a size where I can get paid by worse. So I don't think I can go too large in this river. So I decide on a 1/3 size pot bet of $50. The button thinks about it for a little bit before getting out of the way. And when it's back on the low jack, he pretty much snap calls. So we might have value owned ourselves here. We turn over the King 9 and he looks displeased. He's going to show us that he had the 9 of diamonds as he mucks his hand. Perhaps a hand like 9-10 of diamonds that had top pair in the straight draw. But luckily for us, our opponent doesn't get there. And we're going to scoop in a nice little 3-bet pot, our first one at the 1-3 table. For this next hand, we're in the small blind. The under the gun is raised to $10. The cutoff is called and the button has called. So I see some dead money out there and I decide I want to attack it. I raise it up to $60, 4x the open plus the dead money in the middle. Now I want you guys to think for a second and try to assign a range which you think I should be squeezing here from the small blind facing 2 field calls against an early position open. Now I'm sure some of you guys had Jack 10 suited in there, but probably not all. This is a pretty cuspy squeeze, probably just not good enough, especially after I've shown down pretty light 3-bet. The end of the gun player doesn't believe me. He puts in the call, so we're heads up out of position to a flop which comes king 9-4 rainbow. We have a gut shot straight draw and a backdoor flush draw, and I decide to check here. I'm planning on check raising if he chooses a small size, but our opponent has no interest in letting us check raise by betting small. He sizes up to $85. I think we just have slightly too much going for us to fold. I call to see a queen on the turn one time, planning on probably leading on a queen, 8, or club. Turn is neither of those. It's the 5 of hearts. Still the gut shot straight draw, but our equity has dropped tremendously on this card. So when I check it over the under the gun player and he counts out his stack and decides to push out an overbet of $350 into the pot, I just don't think we can continue here. I very rarely see overbets at these low stakes games, let alone for a large absolute bet size like this. I think more likely than not he has a hand like pocket 9s or possibly even slow played aces trying to get max value from a hand like ace king. I do think this is probably a pretty miserable spot for ace king, and I actually might just lay it down here if I did have big slick. But as played, of course, we only have jack 10. Not going to be calling 350 to make a queen, so I decided to bin it. We've pretty much lost all our profit from the last hand. We're back down to where we started. Pick up this next hand in progress. We have ace 10 of diamonds under the gun. We have placed 2 red chips in front of the yellow line, which indicates that we are raising it up to $10. The cutoff is called, the small blind is called, and the big blind makes it a 4-way party. 4 of us are going to see a flop with $40 in the middle, which comes out jack 7-3 with 2 diamonds. The blinds are going to check it in flow. I think with more than one player behind us, I would be more inclined to check, but with only the cutoff left to act, with an overcard and the nut flush draw, I think our hand is good enough to bet and call a raise on this flop, so I decide to continue for $15. Cutoff's in there, the small blind's gonna pitch his cards, and the big blind wants to see the turn as well. So we're 3 ways to the turn, in a pot that's nearly $100, and the dealer puts down the ace of clubs. There are now 2 flush draws on the board, and of course we make top pair. I'm fairly certain we have the best hand at this point. I think the cutoff and big blind are inclined to raise off their stronger hands on the flop on a somewhat wet texture. I don't think a hand containing 2 clubs or 2 diamonds, or even a hand like 4-5 or 5-6 is ever folding on this turn, so I decide to turn up the heat a little bit. I decide to go for full pot, $100 into about 95. Now in game, I meant to overbet, so I probably should have made it around 125. The cutoff gets out of the way, but it seems like we might have picked just the right size because the big blinds hit the tank quite hard. He's mulling it over for a while. It seems like he's genuinely deciding between calling and folding, but after a while, he slides out $100. So we're gonna see a river heads up in position, which comes off the 6 of hearts. Big blind checks, and I pretty quickly check it back like a baby. I wish I had bet somewhere in the region of $175 here, targeting a hand like Jack X of diamonds. Nevertheless, the big blind mucks what he said was a missed flush draw. I'm not sure whether he had clubs or diamonds, but either way, we're gonna scoop in a pretty decent sized pot, chipping up, moving our stack back in the right direction. Few orbits later, and we're back in the small blind when we peel the 9-10 of clubs. You can see I knock over 5 green chips in the middle. Luckily that's out of turn and non-binding in this casino, because I like the suited connector, but probably not enough to open raise to 42 big blinds. What is binding though is when the hijack, cutoff, and button put in $3 for a limp, and I decide to go with a normal raise size of $20. The hijack player is going to stick in the call. The cutoff and button only budgeted $3 for this hand, so they're both going to get out of the way. It is important to play within your budget, so some good bankroll management from the cutoff and button there. So we get to tango mano y mano with the hijack, where we see a flop of queen 6-5 with 2 hearts. We have nothing but a couple of backdoor straight draws, so I don't actually mind just check folding this flop, but when players limp call, it does cap their range a lot. This particular player I think is a little bit too wide, so I decide to go for a small bet of $15. Looking to fold out some air hands that are better than mine, like some king and jack highs. He sticks in the call, so I'm pretty much just done with this hand, especially when we see the ace of spades. It brings in a second flush draw. So there's even more ways for the hijack to continue if we were to go for the double barrel. And if he's going to float ace high on the flop, he'll make top pair a bunch on this turn. So I decided to cut my losses and go for a check fold on the turn, but the hijack actually checks it back. And when we see the 8 of spades on the river, I don't think the hijack would check back when he picks up a flush draw on the turn. I have 10 high. I can't win this hand by checking, and if you've watched my videos before, you know I don't like to give up when I don't think I can win at showdown. So I decide to bet small for $30, targeting hands like missed heart draws, 7-8 that is river to pair. This will also surely fold out all of his king highs that we lose to that decided to float the flop. This isn't a big pot, but it's always nice to get a bluff through. I'm not usually a big advocate for bluffing a ton in these small stakes games where people tend to be a bit stickier, especially not an advocate for bluffing for super small sizes. But I think this is a pretty good spot to recognize our opponent probably just doesn't have a ton of strong hands and then we could kind of get a discount on our bluff. That ends up being the last hand that we play at the must move game. It's around 9:30 when we get moved into the main game. I've been playing for about 5 hours, so I'm a bit tired, but I'm still stuck around $200, and the main game looks pretty good. There's a lot of money on the table, some familiar, friendly faces over there. So I decided the game looks good enough to keep playing, but I also need a little bit of time to reset. So I order some dinner, we claim our seat, and we head over to fuel up for the second half of the session. Alright, little session update. Got our food, looks really good. It's currently 9:30, so I've been here for like 5 hours. Yeah, feels fresh though. This food is really good actually. We just got moved to the main game. You guys probably just saw it. Played in the must move for like 4 hours. It was crazy. There's some really deep stacks. In the main game, we got about 850 in our stack, a little less. Not afraid to play a $1,700 pot if we have to. But game looks really good for what I've seen so far. Recognize a couple of the players, very nice guys, so should be good. All right, guys, good luck us. So we finished chowing down on our dinner break. The food was actually quite good. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but definitely exceeded expectations. So shout out to whoever made my chicken teriyaki. It was delicious and just the thing I needed. Definitely feeling good after eating that good food. And feeling even better when we get a prime squeeze opportunity in the big blind. There's an under the gun open to 15, a hijack call, and a small blind call, and we could squeeze it up to $100 with pocket queens. The initial raiser folds, and this is pretty quickly going to fold around. While it's nice to pick up some premium hands when we first move to a table, I mostly left this clip in so that you could see one of the players' stacks. He's moving over from the 1 seat to the 8 seat right now. His name is Bill. He's a very nice guy. He's a regular here at Gate City in the 1-3 game. Very good player. And you can see the dealer shipping his mountains of chips over. He's sitting with nearly $6,000 in front of him. Now, this is a match the stack game, so you might be thinking he just bought all those chips. And while it is match the stack, it is a cap of 2,500. So he's at least doubled up, and Bill loves to tell people how much of a donkey he is. But in reality, he's a very crafty player. He's already let me know that he wants to get involved and make some action for the vlog. And I'm not sure if his seat change has anything to do with that, but let's just say we might be hearing from Bill a little bit later. A couple of hands later, we find ourselves in the cutoff with the king of clubs and the ace of diamonds. The hijack is posted after coming back from the bathroom, so there's a little bit extra dead money out there. The under the gun player has opened to $20. It seems like a slightly larger raise size than normal, but with the $4 dead in there from the posted player and the hijack, I don't think this necessarily means a stronger range than normal. Regardless, we have a top 5% hand in the cutoff, so we're going to be 3-betting. I make it 3x up to $60. Want to be 3-betting a lot from the cutoff to drive the button player out so we can have position post-flop. The under the gun player doesn't think too long before flicking in the call, so I don't think he's going to have top of range super often when he turbo calls. So we're heads up to a flop, which is Jack 8-4 Rainbow. These Jack High Rainbow boards are going to be ones that we can range bet, so I decide to go for a small size of $40, about 1/3 pot. Under the gun doesn't want to battle with us, but we take down another pot without making a pair, this time in a 3-bet pot. While we definitely want to be winning the bigger pots, consistently fighting for these small pots has definitely improved my win rate in recent times. We get a seat change to the 7 seat, the nut vlogging seat, where we look down at King 7 of diamonds on the button. The low jack player has limped. We've ISO'd up to $15. Bill in the small blind says he wants to check out the flop, and he tells the low jack player that the water is warm. The low jack wants to go for a swim. He flicks him the $15. So we're gonna go 3 ways in position to a flop, which is a lot like my friend Nick for half of his junior year. It has mono. It's King 8-7 all hearts. We make top and bottom pair. It quickly checks on over to us. We have a pretty strong but vulnerable hand, so I decide to put out a small continuation bet of $15. Bill sticks in the call. The low jack player forgot his floaties, and the waters are getting a little bit too rough for him. He mucks his cards, so we're heads up with Bill to the Jack of Hearts turn. The board looks like a third grade teacher's classroom in February. There's too many hearts out there. I'm perhaps a little bit jaded from my past relationships because I'm heartless in this hand. So when Bill checks, I decide to check it on back, and we see the deuce of diamonds on the river. Now, I mentioned before that Bill's crafty, so I don't think he only has to lead flushes here. I think he can bluff. So when Bill bets $25, I pretty quickly call. Bill shows us that he was going for some thin value with 7-8 offsuit, and we show him that we could have played a much larger pot if the turn were not a heart. Credit to Bill for going for some thin value. Unfortunately for him, this time he's value owned himself. We're going to pick up another medium-sized pot, but it feels like the 7 of spades on the river probably would have made us a millionaire. Let me set the stage for this next hand. We have pocket 10s in the small blind of the red variety. I had mentioned that Bill and I have been going back and forth and chatting a lot this night. He is genuinely a very nice guy. He told me he wants to support the vlog, so he has taken it upon himself to take out his phone and begin to watch every video I've ever put out. He has his phone on the table in front of him, so I have to admit this is a first for me, guys. I'm sitting down at a poker table, not only with people who watch the vlog, but with someone who is actively watching the vlog with the volume on while we're playing together. Now, to make things even sicker, Bill is actually featured in episode number 19. So there's already a pretty interesting leveling war going on here. So when the cutoff opens it up to $12, we of course have a hand that's good enough to 3-bet. I make it $50 to go, a little bit more than 4x from the small blind. And Bill pretty quickly reaches into his stack and 4-bets up to $125. The cutoff can't continue. And to make this leveling war even weirder, Bill has just finished a hand where him and I played a decent sized pot that I actually bluffed him in. So all that is to say, I don't think he has to just have top of range here when he 4-bets. So I stick in the call. We're heads up in a pot that's over $250, and the flop is 6-5-4 with 2 spades. I think this board's pretty neutral. I don't think either of us are going to have sets or straights all that often. I definitely can't go anywhere for this size. I briefly consider raising in case he has a hand like ace-king or ace-queen, but Bill is not the type of player to give up, and while it might be tempting to check raise and just end the hand now, I think he'll probably continue bluffing a lot of runouts. So I decide to gamble a little bit that the turn is not going to be a Broadway card, and we see an interesting 8 of spades hit the turn. Front door flush completes. We of course do not have a spade in our hand, and Bill is not slowing down. He goes for $250, right around half pot. Now I think this is where I would probably start to pitch my hand a lot against different players, but I'm having a hard time laying this one down. It's the same story as the flop if he has a hand like ace-king or ace-queen, and half of those combos are going to contain a spade. But I decide once again to take the high variance route, and I just call, hoping a safe card hits the river. I'm planning on folding on any ace, king, or spade. I haven't made my mind up about a queen yet. The river is the 9 of clubs. We still have an overpair. It is by no means the nuts in this scenario. I would prefer to have a spade here against a capable player. I'm gonna have a hard time folding this river. Additionally, I could still hear my voice breaking down a previous hand that him and I played together. So when he grabs a stack of white chips and announces that he's all in, I've made up my mind already. I stick in the 1 chip for the call, expecting to lose a fair bit of the time, but now is not one of those times. He says you're good as he turns over ace-queen offsuit with the ace of spades. Honestly, credit to him, this is a sick bluff. But unfortunately, Bill, you can't bluff bad players, they never fold. Our read was correct, that he was getting a little bit out of line. We hung on for dear life, we got a lucky run out, and we're able to secure the full double up. The table was honestly in shock at this hand and went silent for a couple minutes. The only thing you could hear is my voice speaking in one of the previous vlogs. Again, credit to Bill, this is a sick bluff that should probably work a lot of the time, but I just couldn't get over the fact that he's capable of bluffing in these spots, and that I needled him a few vlogs ago. This nearly $1,900 pot gets shipped our way. We would play for a couple more hours and chip down without getting involved in too many interesting hands. The clock has struck midnight. I've put in a full 8-hour workday here. It's time to rack up and cash out. Wow. Just wow. I didn't mean to foreshadow when I said I was fine playing $1,800 pot or whatever it was, but geez. Wow. Sick bluff by him, and happy I found the call down. Very nice guy. Shout out to you, Bill. Just very capable player. Seen him make some big moves, so had a hard time folding the overpair there. In for a grand, out for 1735. Pretty good session. Yeah, can't complain. Yeah, we played for 8 hours. For a while, didn't think I was gonna get unstuck. Moved to the main game, and great action there. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, good luck at the tables, guys.